The following is a Hoop Ball presentation. Welcome to the Fantasy NBA Today podcast.
Well, hello everybody. Good Sunday to everyone. Hope you guys are doing well. Welcome to this special second weekend edition of Fantasy NBA Today. I say second weekend because we did it, first weekend of October as well. 31 shows in 31 days here in this wild month of October. We'll go back to weekdays starting in November. I actually probably should have looked ahead to see what that actually means. Oh boy, the last 2 days of October, that's a weekend. Oh my goodness, this month started with a weekend and ends with a weekend. What have I done? All right, well, it's possible we might not do shows on the 30th and 31st. I didn't look that far ahead because then it rolls right into the next week, but we might still do it. I'm Dan Bespers, your host here on Fantasy NBA Today. This is a Hoop Ball presentation, and because it's a special Sunday show, we're going to just launch right into our interview today with the great Alex Rikleen. We'll be talking to him here in about 20 seconds. Just want to give you guys quickly, you can find me on Twitter at Dan Bespers, DanBesbris. Hoopball is hoop-ball.com. They are on Twitter at hoopballfantasy. Let's do it. I don't know what to say, man. I went into this mock draft thinking, okay, well, I know how this is going to go. And then our guest today, Alex Rikleen, threw me not even a curveball. This was like straight up screwball on our 9-cat roto mock. But before we dive into that, what's up, dude? How you been?
I'm good, man. I'm excited for the season. Very much ready to look past some disappointing fantasy football drafts and and get back to the sport that I'm better at.
I don't do football. I've considered it so many times, and I thought I might dabble. It wouldn't be as an expert, obviously. It would be as a goofball player because we now have a football show. I thought I can listen to our football show, but I don't know. I really needed whatever few months the NBA has given us of off-season the last 2 years, and ultimately I didn't do it. So I don't know. You could tell me anything you did in football, and I'd say, that sounds great. So who's someone you took?
The pick I've that's been probably the best for me so far is Hawkinson.
That sounds great.
Him.
I don't know who that is, but that sounds great.
He's been working out pretty well.
Awesome. That sounds great. Okay, let's talk basketball. See, I promised. You had the 6th pick, which is actually kind of an interesting spot, and you ended up with Kevin Durant. 9-cat roto with a game's cap does mitigate some of the fears on KD, but I don't even want to. I'm actually curious more on like a sliding scale, really, because I think nobody thinks KD's going to play the full season, but the jury's kind of out on how close he gets to it. Where do you think he ends up this year out of 82 games, roughly?
Probably around 70, 72-ish.
That's not bad at all.
Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, when you look at the players who have been where it's just load management and not load management plus, a 4-game absent for a hamstring pull and whatever, 10, 12 games is kind of how much it tends to be. It just, when you have, someone who is getting load managed and then they have that injury on top of it, that's when you start getting into the mid 60s or you get into the 15 to 20 games missed, etc. But, if it's just load management, I don't know why. I think 70 plus games is reasonable.
Do you feel comfortable taking him in a head-to-head draft?
Certainly. Yeah, I don't worry about games missed nearly as much as
me,
most of the rest of the industry. I worry about it for someone like Joel Embiid or Kyrie Irving, who's a constant risk to miss months at a time.
Yeah, I'll say.
But most of the time, especially in a head-to-head league, I figure if my team can't make the playoffs with one player hurt, then I can't win the championship with that player. So I really focus much more on per game stats than season totals.
Do you consider on the injury front? I know one of the things that I I think I probably put more emphasis on not drafting someone who's already hurt as opposed to someone maybe who gets hurt frequently, but you don't really know how that goes. Because if you get off to a hot start in head-to-head, that sort of opens the door for a lot of stuff.
Right. Yeah. I think that you got to be careful not to draft someone currently hurt. That is a good one that people should do. And I'm not actually as good at it as I should be, but it is something that I at least philosophically agree with.
Yeah, it's so tempting because they're falling and you're like, oh, maybe.
Yeah.
But
who is, I was just looking at someone. Yeah, like Pascal Siakam.
Perfect example, yeah.
He's going to miss the first week, maybe 2 weeks, hopefully not more. And he just seems like such a value. It feels like his ADP is so low, but taking a player who's coming into the season hurt is not the best.
Yeah, stuff always goes wrong.
He's a trap that I'm struggling with right now.
Yeah, I think you almost have to turn your brain off in a situation like that because you start to run these numbers in real time. You're like, this could work. He could do this, and this might happen. And then they miss an extra 3 weeks, and they compensate coming back too soon, and then they blow out a hammy, and the whole thing comes apart at the seams. Your second pick, actually, when you did it, it was controversial, and I don't know that it is anymore. What is this? Is this 18 coming back now? I've lost track of where we are.
18 or 19.
Yeah, 18 or 19 is Michael Porter Jr., and when you did it, everybody was like, ooh, right around 20, and then all of a sudden now he's basically going like at 20. So less to talk about on him than if we did this hit a week and a half ago, I guess.
Yeah. I think it's a bargain, actually. I have him at, in the 12 to 14 range. I think that he's fantastic. His numbers after Jamal Murray went down are fantastic. After Jamal Murray went down, I came across this stat while I was writing something on Porter the other day. He was 2 made threes away from 50% from behind the arc for more than a month after Jamal Murray went down. This is one of the best shooters in the league. He's entering his third year. To the moon.
Do you think he can keep up that shooting clip? Because it was pretty nuts. He was amazing.
I mean, no, I don't. I'm not predicting 50% from behind the arc for anyone.
Or just even the overall breadth of it. Because over the season, he shot 54% from the field with almost 3 threes per game. That's almost unheard of.
50 and 40, I think, are kind of realistic. I don't feel like I'm being bold, expecting 50% from the field and 40% behind the arc from Michael Porter Jr. That feels like a median projection. That does not feel like, I don't think that's a reach at all.
I said I wasn't going to talk about every player you drafted, but I feel like there's a story behind almost every player. But I do want to jump over the third rounder. You took Booker at 30, which I think is... Like, there are a lot of discussions on Devin Booker, but the fact that he's not going in the first round, things have sort of compensated, and I don't know that there's a big argument happening that he is going later, and that's fine. Robert Williams, Time Lord at 43. I'd rather pause on this one because he's one of those guys where, like, what I'm seeing isn't matching what the data is telling me in terms of where he's getting drafted. Every draft that I've watched or been a part of, he's gone in the 40s, and Yahoo's telling me his ADP is in the mid-50s. What's real? By the way, I don't even know if I appropriately introduced you, but I'm going to do that after this pick.
It's all good. Yeah, I'm really confused on that too. For that same article, I was writing an article up right now on RotoWire about ADP surprises, and Robert Williams is one of the ones who surprised me. His ADP on CBS is like in the hundreds.
What?
And default ranks are relevant. And his ADP on Yahoo and ESPN is 60 and 62.
Wow.
At least as of today. So he's going all over the place. I agree with you. All the drafts I've been in, the latest I've seen him go is the mid-5th, and this is the mid-4th. I think that he is a relatively safe value here. The only risk, I think, is the injury. He was one of the league leaders in blocks, and among good shot blockers, he's as good as it gets in steals. And that was in 19 minutes a game. He's now the starting center. They got rid of both Tice and Tristan Thompson. They replaced him with Horford, who plays a lot of 4 and isn't going to have, the same 30 minutes a game he had a couple of years ago. Robert Williams is the starting center. I would be shocked if he plays less than 24 minutes a game. And at that point, he's amongst the leaders in, stocks, so, steals plus box. Combine them, he's going to be at the top. I don't know that he'll be number 1, but he's going to be right among the leaders. He shoots like DeAndre Jordan in his prime, not quite as good a rebounder, unfortunately, but he's bad at free throws, but he takes so few of them and it almost doesn't matter. He limits you strategically, and that's actually one of the things that I think I did poorly in this draft is, I'm happy with the value I got on Robert Williams, but he sort of directs you in some ways strategically, and I'm not sure I really maximized that.
I want to know more on that. Before you answer my follow-up question on the Time Lord, I am, of course, talking to the great Alex Rikleen, who I did not say at the front end of the podcast, like a marvelous host that I am. But the beauty of audio editing is that I can actually introduce you before this clip runs. So, guy pointing at head.gif for the win, at Rikleen on Twitter, Rikleen. What do you mean?
Thanks for having me. Good to be back.
Yeah, I did ask how you were doing, but I didn't say who you were. So that's pretty awesome by me. So what do you mean when you say it sort of like forced you into a particular position by taking him here?
Well, so Robert Williams is, in the top 5 rounds, where did Draymond go? Is Draymond going in the top 5 rounds?
I think I took him. I think that's me, actually, but I don't remember where. It was either 5th or 6th.
Yeah, so it's going to be a close competition between Time Lord and Draymond for the least points scored amongst people taken in the top 5 rounds.
I love that. I love that team, by the way. That's the best All-Star team.
Yeah, they're going to really go head-to-head. And so, the way I went into this with Durant and Porter and Booker was I was thinking, all right, I'll get a bunch of points to front-load it, and then I'll have Robert Williams, and I'll be able to survive that by focusing so much on points with my other picks. But then I took Simmons, then I took Jeremy Grant, who, in order for Jeremy Grant to actually be helpful in points, he's got to maintain some of the shooting efficiency that I'm not sure he's going to maintain. We're probably going to talk about him in a minute. I think that I started, a build that incorporates Robert Williams pretty well, but it kind of fell apart late. And so I'm worried, am I punting points? Am I not? Am I punting points with 3 of the best scorers in the league? That's stupid. Or am I, do I have enough defensive help in it to make it so that I'm not thrilled with how the team came together from a team building standpoint. I don't like the middle of my draft. I'm disappointed in myself.
Well, you can talk more about it if you like. You can jump to Jeremy
Sure.
Grant. Grant, by the way, was at 78. Simmons was 67. Ja was 54. You got scoring there, although we know Ja has other stuff that doesn't quite translate. It's the weirdest thing. Does anybody have the biggest gap between how they look on the floor and what their fantasy stuff looks like?
Yeah, I know, right? His 9-cat ranks were outside the top 200 last year.
Yeah, it's insane. And this is a really good basketball player.
Great. And he's not, you should draft him. He's not outside the top 200. But just the way the math works on those ranking systems, his turnovers and some of the other stuff really drove him down. But that Ja's another one. I think I got solid value there in the mid-5th, but am I punting assists or am I not punting assists? What's happening here? I don't love the way the pieces fit together, even though I think with both of these players and with my next pick, I got good value with Ben Simmons in the 6th round. Even if there's a chance he misses the whole season. This draft started a while ago. I was probably taking Ben Simmons when there was a little more optimism for a trade. But if Ben Simmons plays, he's better than a mid-6th round pick.
Yeah, I don't have a clue where that dude ends up. I'm lost. I'm in a fog.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I don't think I could draft him as things currently stand. But we didn't. This draft started like 2 weeks ago. Now it was a very long, slow draft. I wanted to make sure it was zero pressure. I turned the clock off when pretty much anybody was sleeping. So there were like 5 hours when everybody in the U.S. and on the other side of the Pacific were awake. And so it took a while, and then the Simmons stuff broke, and I honestly don't remember when things shook out. But we can talk about Jeremy Grant, actually, because he had such a brilliant first half last year and then just completely ran out of gas. Who is he this season? Yeah. Is he the first half Jeremy, second half, or like some in between? Because they do have some younger guys there that are going to play more this year. They actually have one older guy who's one of my favorite older guys, but that doesn't really have anything to do with Grant. So what Grant are we getting?
Yeah, this is. I feel safe saying this is my worst pick of the draft, and there. Had we done this draft a little bit later, I wouldn't have taken him.
How come?
I think I reached for him, and I hadn't done enough of my deep dive on Grant to really to realize how much I felt that. I think that he's either going to have a similar high usage, in which case his percentage points are going to really hurt, or some of these new players coming in are going to cut into his usage rate. In either case, he's going to have a really hard time repeating 22 points a game. And I don't think I'd fully really internalized that when we got to this point in the draft. Where's his trying to pull up his splits, his before and after All-Star breaks.
It was great and ugly. That was like he was top 30, 35 range, and then after it was like 160, I think, because he was shooting high volume, like 39% over a long stretch.
Yeah.
It was weird.
I got it right here.
Perfect.
Pre-All-Star, he had his points fell off, and he fell off not exactly at the All-Star break, so this isn't totally catching it, but his points fell off by almost 4 points a game. His rebounds fell off by 2 rebounds a game. That's terrifying. His assists fell off a little bit. His steals fell off by 0.3 steals per game. Just drops across the board. His 3-point percentage fell off meaningfully. Everything sort of fell apart the second half of the year. And now that they've got a little bit more young talent around him, I am concerned. I don't think we're going to see – I don't know that it's going to be as bad as it got towards the end of last season, but I don't think it's going to be anywhere near as good as the first half of last season. And to draft him in the mid-7th, it's got to be at least close to what he was doing at the start of last year, and I don't.
Yeah, I'm a bit torn on him, but I do kind of keep falling back on this idea that there isn't much in the way of ceiling that we didn't see last year, and then take away some of that usage. So what is the ceiling? And then we did see this weird floor fallout. But at the same time, if he's somewhere in between, I don't know that this is a horrid pick. I think it's just sort of kind of bleh, which is weird. And then we ended up talking about it a while. It's like, this is the one you wouldn't talk about. And then we're like, maybe we should talk about it because no one's talking about Jeremy Grant.
I think it's, I mean, ask your listeners, but I think it's useful to have someone who does this for a living come on and say, hey, I made a mistake and here's why. And I've thought about it more and I've realized that, no, I did this wrong and let me help you try to avoid that.
All right. Fair enough.
Hopefully your listeners will agree, but I think that was a miss on my part.
All right. Fair enough. Larry Nance at 91, one of my favorite roto guys in a new spot. We don't fully know his role, but it does seem like there is an opportunity there. My issue with him is he can't make it through a damn season healthy. Otherwise, I adore everything about Larry Nance. I've been on the Nance bandwagon for a long time, and he keeps pissing me off with these knee and ankle and whatever stuff going on. I guess you kind of, if you take him around 100, this is 91 was the number here. And again, Roto games cap, even if he gives you 55 really good ball games, it's not going to break you because This was your 8th round pick. So I don't know if you were going to applaud yourself or kill yourself for this one, but I actually like it.
I like this one. I like this one, and I like Nance on a team with Robert Williams if you're leaning into the points punt, which I'm not sure if I am or not. So, strategically, I'm not sure if it fits with the team. But as a pick in a vacuum, I think Larry Nance at 91 is totally solid value, maybe even better than that. There's a lot of positive buzz coming out of Portland that Anthony Simons is probably ready to take a leap. I feel like we've heard that story before. I'll believe it when I see it. I'm ready to sort of close the book on that one and say he's a solid backup point guard for 12 minutes a night when he's not even the main ball handler because CJ McCollum's doing it.
I agree.
But I'm not sure that we should expect any more than that. The Raptors do have kind of an abundance of big men all of a sudden, but I think Nance is better than Cody Zeller. Zeller and Nurkic both have injury problems of their own. So the odds that both of them are healthy all the time, not necessarily a given.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The Cody Zeller story is 11 healthy games and then 2 weeks off. It's been that way for years now.
And depending on how they try to set it up, both Larry Nance and Robert Covington, they can both play small forward or power forward. Larry Nance can go up to center. So there's a lot of opportunity, I think. I think that the Portland depth chart does look better than it did last year, but I don't think it looks a lot better than it did last year. And I think that Nance is going to be asked to fill a really meaningful role. 25 minutes a game, hopefully maybe a touch more than that. And he's shown that he can give you some rebounds, good defensive stats, some assists from a weird position and a weird time in the draft. He's not great at, what's the phrase? Master of none, but good at a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, Jack of many trades, master of none.
Yeah, there you go. I totally butchered that, but he's that.
Jack of all.
He's that, and especially, this was 8 cat, but especially in 9 cat, he's, I think, a really solid late pick.
Yeah, I agree. I want to lump your last 4 together because I think once you clear, sometimes even earlier, but you got Nance, who I think is a relatively safe producer where you got him. Some people start kind of taking flyer shots in the 90s. You started taking your guys that are maybe a little bit more like question mark with upside after 100. So 9, 10, 11, and 12. DeAndre Hunter, Nick Claxton, Davion Mitchell, and I'm going to butcher this one, but I think I heard you and Alan say it. Is it Alperen Şengün?
I believe that's right.
I'm not
an expert, but I believe that is correct.
So talk me through those 4 guys, because 2 of them are rookies, which means I've never heard of them, and the other 2, the other 2 at least I've heard of.
So you've heard my spiel before that I'm quote team never rookie. I think you should almost never draft a rookie before pick 100, and then you should draft almost as many as you can after pick 100. Assuming a standard league, I think that rookies have the best upside in drafts, but the fantasy community's hit rate on figuring out which rookies will hit and which won't is dreadful. So I passed on, Jalen Green, who went 2 picks after Larry Nance. That could look real bad. I kind of like Jalen Green. If you forced me to take an early rookie, he'd be the one I took. But it was a little before I wanted to start going in on rookies. But once you start getting late, Davion Mitchell, Şengün, I think that both of them have a ton of potential. And one thing that we got to keep in mind, hopefully you can push off your draft as late as possible, but the Kings are a potential landing spot for Ben Simmons. If that happens, you got to assume some of the Kings suddenly really deep backcourt gets shipped out, and opening up a little extra minutes for Davion Mitchell, who was a draft prospect that I really liked and think can contribute right away. And Şengün, people keep comparing him to a smaller Jokic in terms of the way in which he is a sort of big man, but a very capable and willing passer with great vision. Obviously the parallel isn't perfect. One is a rookie who didn't even go in the lottery, and the other is the MVP. But that's the analogy that keeps coming up. And I don't think that this is, a lot of the time rookies get comped to, the European guy gets compared to the European guy. The white big man from Duke or North Carolina gets compared to the white big man from Duke or North Carolina. I don't think that this is just a sort of case where you've got the European center being compared to a European center. I see.
You're not the first, by the way. You're not the first.
Yeah.
Mike Barner, Jonas Nader both brought him up as the guy that they wish had fallen to them in this draft that you got. So you were coveted, sir.
Yeah. Oh, great. I think that, and it's my last pick. I mean, this is waiver fodder. If he doesn't hit, I can drop him. But I think that he actually has more upside than Davion Mitchell. I just thought that Mitchell was going to get drafted quicker. At this point, I think the market's coming around to Şengün, and I would probably bump him up to the 11th or maybe even the 10th round if you want him. But at the time we were doing this, I thought there was a little bit more buzz around Davion Mitchell, so I took him first and was able to get both of them.
Who did you want in this draft that didn't get to you in this late area? Because it seems like you got actually a couple of the guys you wanted there.
I did. In the closing rounds, I got pretty much all of my primary targets. I'm looking through. Yeah, I mean, I would have liked Josh Giddey, but Josh Giddey was my backup to Şengün. So I got the one I actually wanted. Daniel Gafford went a couple picks before DeAndre Hunter. That strikes me as really good value. And Larry Nance went 3 picks after Norman Powell, and 4 picks after Buddy Hield. I think that those are 2 steals in the 8th round.
Hey, I think that one of those was me. I think I got Powell.
Yeah, one of those was you, and the other was
nice.
Catrone. I think those are really, really great picks in the 8th round. So I think that those are guys I missed at, but the ones that I actually missed on, the one I'm most upset about was Bogdan Vogbanovic in the 7th round, who went 1 pick before Jeremy Grant.
Really interesting. Okay. Talk me through that one, because I missed on him bad last year. I did not think he was going to be as good as he was. And I've had some people say, well, there's no way he can keep up the shooting clip he had late in the year. And I thought, yeah, that's fine. I don't need him to be top 50. He's going near 80 in most drafts or later,
right? Which
feels like that's okay, well, if you're going to make me do it, and I'll take him.
Feels like a total steal that late. I mean, I think it's important to remember that the Hawks wing are loaded at the wing with DeAndre Hunter, who I drafted a little bit later, Kevin Huerter, who if you can find a team where Kevin Huerter is playing 28 minutes a game, he's a top 100 fantasy asset. He can produce. The problem is he's just not as good at real basketball as Hunter or Bogdanovic or some of these other players around him, or Gallinari, even when Gallinari's healthy.
Yeah, I remember that there was a stretch with Huerter where he was like the backup point guard because X number of players were out, and that was this weird little 3-week pocket where he was quite good in fantasy, and then Trey came back and he didn't get to pass anymore, and it all went right out the window.
Yeah. But and they've got Cam Reddish, who we learned can play. This team has a lot of wing depth, and they were better when Bogdanovic was playing, which I think is relevant. And I think it's also important that the way in which they prioritized working him in, even over some of these other people who were playing well. That tells me a lot about how they value him in what is a crowded depth chart. And the fact that he came back, he was still sort of working through that injury. He missed the first 2 months of the season. He only played for the next month. He was only averaging 23 minutes a game. So he wasn't even fully healthy. I think that, sure, maybe, his 47% from the field last year was a career high. Maybe he has difficulty completely repeating that. But, he shot 39% from three as a rookie. It's not like this guy is a schlub shooter. He's a really good shooter, and he can produce in a lot of areas. And I think that he was still hampered by injury throughout most of last season, and I'm excited to see what happens when he's a little bit more healthy.
All right, you're free to leave the hot seat. Was it? I think it was probably okay. I tried to cool it off, actually, before you got in there. Any other, general draft strategy things? I've been kicking around this late second round dilemma for some time. You got a solution for me out there?
Well, for auction leagues, I think I always sort of target the fatty middle in auction drafts.
Right.
And this year, I'm actually going to go away from that in auctions. I think that there's a bit of a drop off after the top 18. And this year, more than any, I want to spend up as much as it takes, get 3 people in the top 18, and then just try to snag enough $4, $5, $6 players to fill up the rest of my roster. There's probably going to be some good players there. I think that the late second round looks like third round. The fourth round looks like a fifth round, and the sixth and seventh round is scary. But I think you asked. Sorry, that's a little off topic. To the question of what to do about the end of the second round, I actually think that as much as I don't like the players after the top 18, I don't have a completely overlapping top 18 as everyone else, and so I do think that there is still some value in the late second, as long as you sort of look at my ranks and not everyone else's. I mean, I'm being flip, but Bam Adebayo's ADP is 22.
That's dumb.
That's a little too low. Zion Williamson's ADP is 18. That is a wasted pick at 18. Let your league mates do that and take advantage of free spot above. Michael Porter Jr. is often around that late. So just to run through, I think everyone knows we're pretty much set on the top 10. Let me take it from after Luka Doncic, my next 7 or so who I think are in that draftable top 18. I've got Michael Porter Jr., Paul George, Jimmy Butler, Fred VanVleet, Bam Adebayo, Trae Young, and Domantas Sabonis. I think there's a good shot at least 1 or 2 of those is there through the end of the second round. So,
yeah, Sabonis is probably your best bet there, I think.
I think so, but it will also depend a little bit on what your host site is. Sabonis is kind of high on CBS's ranks. They're a little bit lower.
Oh,
yeah. So it depends a little bit where you're playing. But, I think that there's enough sort of freewheeling going on around the league that there's a good shot that one of those guys is there for you. So hopefully one of those guys will get you through. And if not, you can always go with Devin Booker or LeBron James. It's a little early for them in the late second, but they can produce.
Alex, thank you as always, man. This is always a pleasure. I know, and thank you for pull back the curtain a little bit. Thanks for staying up late to do a hit in evening Pacific time, and you are decidedly not on Pacific time. You are the best.
Well, thanks. It was a joy to have. I'm just sad we didn't spend more time talking about Al Horford. I love you, Al Horford.
Another time.
Al Horford.
We'll
Great
dedicate
pick.
one full hit. Yeah, we'll do one whole segment just on Al Horford next time. He is at Rikleen on Twitter, Rikleen. See, I'm doing it again here because you'll never know I forgot to do it at the beginning. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Thanks again, Alex. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me. See ya.
Big thank you once again to the great Alex Rikleen. Love talking to that dude. I've had him on the show a few times now. It's been a few. This was an interesting one because he took kind of a different draft strategy than usual. And as always, does a hell of a job of presenting his case. Always. He's at Rikleen on Twitter. Again, you can follow him there. I am at Dan Bespris on Twitter, just to remind you guys very quickly. And once again, reminder, the Brewski 150 is available now to all B150 solo buyers and Fantasy Pass subscribers. So go help us power the machine by heading to hoop-ball.com, clicking on the premium tab, and getting either a Fantasy Pass subscription or the Brewski 150. Once you get them, make sure you join our Discord, which I know terrifies many of you, but it's really just a fancy name for a bunch of chat rooms, one of which is an Ask the Pros room where you can bug hoopball analysts day and night. We got folks here in the States, Australia, basically what I should say is on both sides of the Pacific, because Philippines also. So we got you covered. There's pretty much someone awake at hoopball 24 hours a day. Another great reason. I think access is probably the easy way to describe it. I don't know that anybody is going to jump ahead of hoopball in access in the premium subscription. One more reminder here, the hockey season begins. Normally I wouldn't care, except our buddies over at mybookie.ag have a $25 odds boost, where if anybody scores in a game, you win it. It's basically a free $25. All you have to do is make sure you're actually betting $25 on it, and then you get actual cash winnings. I will not rest until all of you are getting $25 for doing next to nothing. If you have questions, hit me up. If you need to sign up over there, make sure to use promo code HOOPBALL on the third page of sign up so they know who sent you. And again, if you're running into any troubles, I'm more than happy to help you out. Just bug me on social media. We'll continue to chit-chat over there. Coming up over the next week, we will talk to Jonas Nader, Aaron Brewski, Josh Lloyd, among others. I will also have some real draft results we can begin to cover here on Fantasy NBA Today. Slightly shorter show here on Sunday. Once again, a big thank you to Alex Rikleen. This is Fantasy NBA Today. Drop a review on this thing. I didn't have time to read any new ones on today's show, but if you have a few seconds, please rate and review the podcast. And maybe it's just a thank you for me doing 31 dumb shows and 31 stupid days. Oh boy. Have a great conclusion to your weekend. We'll talk to you tomorrow on Monday. So long.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.